In this video I'll be showing you how to replace the rear sway bar. I've never done it myself before, so probably going to take a while figuring stuff out. But the first thing you want to do is just jack up the car in the rear. And what we're going to be removing first is a 14mm bolt. It's the bolt that holds the sway bars to the control arms. So here's that bolt. And there it is in the left control arm. And to remove this, you're gonna need a deep socket, 14mm. Okay, so I just took off those 14mm nuts. So there it is, and there was a bushing. So there's the left one and the right one. So they're off. So the next thing you want to do is to undo the bolts that are holding the sway bar to the chassis. And it's also 14mm, and you can see it's right there. Try to get closer. So there it is. That's the sway bar, and it's being held in place right there by two bolts, one 14 and the other 14, and that's on both sides. Okay, so I removed those four 14mm bolts that were holding the sway bar to the chassis, and those are the last bolts that hold sway bar in place. So there it is now. That was the bracket, and now the sway bar is just freely moving right here. And there's just these little rails that are on each side that hold it in place. And yeah, this is another angle of the brace. So it's this brace right here. There's one. There's the other on the left side right here, and they're held in place with three 12mm bolts, so we're going to take those out. Okay, so I just took off those braces right here. So now the sway bar is just kind of hanging there, resting on the exhaust and the control arms. So we took off two bolts that connected sway bar to the control arms, and we took off four that connected sway bar to the chassis, and now I just took off six that held in place these braces. So now I just have to take out the bar. Okay, so I just took out the sway bar. It was kind of a pain because the exhaust is in the way. So of course the best thing to do is to actually take off the exhaust, or even take off the wheel and undo the suspension so the control arm is lowered. But you can still just kind of wiggle it out. So here's the old sway bar and the new sway bar. The old one is 22mm in diameter, and the new one is almost 29. So I just took a closer look of what actually came in the box, and it actually came with the instructions, so I guess that's helpful. But what they said first is to remove the sway bar from the end link that connects to the control arm. Those are the two bolts that I removed first. However, I feel like it'd be almost impossible because there's no room in here. It's all rusted, and what you have to do is pretty much grab a 17mm bolt and an Allen wrench to remove this, and they were proposing to do that on the car. I feel like it would be a lot harder. So yeah, so this is going to be a pain. Okay, so I found some liquid wrench laying around in my garage, so I used that to soak the nut, and it actually helped to break the rust. And I figured out that that was a 6mm Allen wrench that we got to use right here. So I found that in my garage as well. And so we're just going to use that with a 17mm wrench to take it off. And that's it. So now we're just going to put these on the new sway bars. So that. So these bushings here at the top, the old ones are going to come off and they're going to be replaced with new ones. But I'll go over that later. So the TRD manual said that this knot's supposed to be torqued down to 70 foot-pounds. That's a lot. So we'll see if I can do it and not have to use the Allen wrench to stop it from rotating. Alright. Okay, so that's torqued. So now what we have to do is just take these old bushing and the washer out, replace them with the new ones. Alright, so now I'm going to install the other side. Okay, so that's done. So now I'll just do the same thing. Washer and a bushing. So the next step is to grease the bushings that will attach to the body. But I think it's easier to just feed this through right now as it is to the car and install the bushings while it's on the car, because otherwise, I mean, they're huge. There they are, and they'll be in the way of feeding the bar through the exhaust. So right now I'll try to just put this in place and install the rest on the car. One more helpful thing is if you're not sure which way the bar is supposed to go in, you'll see the EIBACH logo. So just install it so it's upside, the right side up. Okay, so I fed the sway bar through. So now what I'm going to do is just going to put those bushings back that I just took off. So there's the part. Stabilizer link. It's so hard to see. But yeah, this part right here. I'm just gonna put the washer and the bushing on here and feed it through the control arm. Okay, so I fed the sway bar through, and then I installed that washer and bushing. You can see a little piece of the bushing sticking through. So now I'm gonna put a nut here to just kind of secure it in place, and after that I'm gonna reinstall the bushings that will attach to the chassis. Okay, so I put those in place just to kind of secure it so that they don't come out while I'm gonna install it, while I'm gonna secure the sway bar to the chassis. So there they are. So we pretty much put new bushings, but that bottom nut we reused the old one. So next I'm just gonna grease the inside of these bushings that they provided. They also provided the grease with it. So just grease it there inside, slip it onto the sway bar, and then secure it with these brackets. So I just put a couple strips of that lubricant in there, so then I'm gonna slap it onto the tube and then just kind of rotate it around it to spread it around. Okay, so I installed the bushings. You can see there's a little grease right there. So I put it there and over here. So now I'm just going to install the brackets. Okay, so I installed the brackets. So I installed one right there. Currently in the process of installing one on the right side. And these bolts have to be torqued to 58 foot-pounds. So after you're done torquing the braces that connect the sway bar to the chassis, you just got to reinstall these member braces that have 3 12mm bolts on them, and it's on both sides, and these torque down to 25 foot-pounds. So I torqued down these braces, the ones that have 3 12mm bolts. So now the last thing left is just torque down these links that connect that arm and the sway bar, and torque that down to 25 foot-pounds as well. So it's here and there. And just to remind you, if you don't know if you install the sway bar correctly, you just, they have the name EIBACH written, so you know that you didn't install it upside down. Okay, so I torqued down those links that connect the sway bar and the control arm to 25 foot-pounds. And that's it. We're all set. So now just lower the car and go for a drive and make sure that nothing squeaks or making any kind of weird sounds. Alright, so I went for a ride after I installed the rear sway bars, and everything is fine. There's no squeaking or rubbing or, no noise of any kind. So everything is all set. Now I would suggest actually to install the rears first, because the front messed up the alignment pretty badly. So it's just easier to experience, or better to experience, with the front still intact. Alright, so that's it.